Afternoon everyone, hope you're doing all right. Hope you've had a good Christmas and you're surviving on in there. Bloody tough, bloody tough at the minute. The further restrictions are going to land tomorrow, I think. Yeah, what can you do? This afternoon I've come to Wasdale, and this is the first time I've actually been back here since I started doing these YouTube videos, and given I only live 10 minutes away, it's quite surprising that actually. I had a walk up Scafell Pike planned this afternoon, but rather stupidly I've got to Wasdale Head and I've left my crampons at home. So probably not a good idea to head up there without the proper equipment, given the really hard frost we had last night. So that walk's going to wait a couple of days. Probably not a bad thing though, because we are forecast some heavy snow in the next 48 hours. So yeah, I'm keeping my powder dry until we get a really good whiteout up there. But I've got a good plan B this afternoon. I've come to an old stomping ground of mine that I've not been to for, it's got to be 2 or 3 years, which is Lingmell Beck. Now Lingmell Beck feeds, I'll just show you a bit of B-roll here where we're at. It feeds Wastwater eventually, but it sits between Great Gable and Lingmel, and it's a really good little place to come, and it doesn't really get photographed very often. Lots of potential, lots of nice little rock pools and plunge pools. It's not quite a waterfall, but you know, there's lots of interest there. You know, it's a nice sort of beck, if you like. But also at this time of year, because the sun sets down the length of the Wasdale Valley, you get really nice late light hitting Kirk Fell and Great Gable, which sort of form the backdrop to this scene. So I'm gonna come up here, do a little bit of exploration, see what I can find, and if the light's good later on and we get a little bit of cloud, I might head back down the lake, because as I was driving through, the water was really calm, so we might get some nice reflections and, you know, a nice little picture of Scafell with some snow on the top to finish the day. But I'm going to get moving because it's winter and we haven't got a lot of light, and I need to make best use of it. So I'll catch you in a bit when I've got to Lingmell Beck. Knock my sound on. Right, I'm just gonna have to be a bit careful here because as you can see behind me, a lot of rocks, a lot of running water. Just a sec, let me get this camera sorted. Yeah, lots of potential hazards here. Also, this area is in deep shade a lot of the time, so hard frosts, you know, a lot of these rocks can get very slippy. So yeah, I'm just gonna have a little sort of look about here. It's always amazing when you come to little areas like this, that each time you come you always end up finding something different. I mean, I haven't been here for a couple of years, and it's nice to sort of come back with almost fresh eyes, and I'm already seeing little patterns and stuff that I hadn't picked up on the previous occasion I came. I think looking at this beck though, I'm probably going to have to cross over the other side, so yeah, wish me luck. Alright, hopefully you can hear me okay. The beck that's running behind you, it's a little loud, but hopefully the microphone's picking this up okay. Yeah, I'll just talk you through a little bit of my process with lining up a couple of shots back there. I didn't get the camera out, I was actually using my mobile phone. It's a good idea for a lot of beginners. If you're unsure about a composition and you don't really fancy getting all the gear out of your bag and going through that whole composition process, if you're a bit on the fence, you think it's not worth it, get your mobile phone out, use it to sort of frame up your shot. Generally it simulates about a 24 to 28mm lens, so it's semi-wide angle, and you can get a bit of a feel for whether the shot's going to be worth actually spending a bit of time forming a composition on. My issue that you can see from this little clip here is that Kirk Fell on the left hand side is really starting to sort of intrude in the frame, and it was one of the problems I remember when I came here last time, that any landscape format shot really didn't work. Your eye was just being pulled straight out of the frame to the left. So the one thing I'm watching out for today is making sure that Kirk doesn't interfere with the shot too much. I tell you what, I'm not having such a good day. I've left the crampons at home. I've got a giant spot which is annoying the hell out of me. I'm quite lucky I don't get spots, but this one's a real doozy. And most annoying is the pano part of the tripod head is a little loose, and of course I haven't got my Allen key with me to tighten it. So any shot I do here, I'm going to have to be a bit careful that, you know, I don't get any wobble with that pano head, because you know, it's pretty loose. Yeah, good reminder to keep your tools on you at all times. The easy thing to do here when you've got a sort of a stream like this is obviously just to get the wide angle lens on, go in really close on a nice little bit of running water, and Bob's your uncle, there's your shot. I've had a little walk up and down this stream, and to be perfectly honest with you, nothing's grabbing me at the minute. I'm a little limited in that I haven't got my wellies with me, so I can't really get in the water, so that's kind of stopping me getting, you know, really up close with some of the little streams. What I have came across though is this. Now this is something that I had my eye on the last time, but I wasn't quite sure how to work it into a shot. It's a rock face, and you can see where, I'm not sure what type of mineral it is, but the colouring on it's absolutely fantastic. There's this sort of really deep gold sort of tone to it, and my thinking is that when the sun comes round behind me a bit later on, I might get some really nice direct light hitting this rock face. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to persevere with this shot, really sort of work the angles and see what I can come up with, and give it a go, because as I say, the easy thing would just be to, you know, shoot your typical wide angle scene with a running water, but this is really interesting me, and I think it's always worth remembering that, you know, you should experiment, and you should you know, give little scenes like this a chance. You know, don't just sort of overlook them for the more obvious shots. So this could either pay off or it could be absolutely crap, who cares, but yeah, I'm going to give this one a try, I think. Okay, so for this shot I've spent an inordinate amount of time setting it up, so it better bloody work. Yeah, typical sort of wide angle shot, I guess. I've got the 14-30 lens on, we're at f11 for nice depth of field. I'm going to bracket this shot because I haven't got my filters with me, because I plan to walk up the mountain. But the key thing here is the use of the polarizer. Now, the sort of consensus generally when you're around wet rocks and water is to use a polarizer to cut through the glare and the sheen that's created on the wet rocks, and I would normally do that as well. But in this case, the rock face that I'm shooting, if you turn the polarizer around too far, which I'll show you on the screen here, it cuts through those golden tones far too much. So I've got the polarizer on, but just turned round a little bit, as to sort of not cut through that golden rock face too much. I think I'm going to wait it out a little bit longer, because as you can see from that footage behind me, the sun's working its way around the side of the screes, and we're getting that nice direct light hitting Great Gable now. But we're still about an hour and a half till sunset, so the light's still a bit harsh at the minute, so I'm going to wait it out. Those sort of golden tones that you can see on the side of the mountain there, hopefully they'll turn a little darker and a little redder later on, and it'll complement this scene nicely, I think. A couple of things while I'm waiting around. Firstly, I did mention on that last video that I'm going to do a film with my framer Scott, and we are going to do that. I know I keep saying this, it was meant to be this video, but Scott's a little bit busier than I thought he was going to be during the Christmas period, so we're going to push that back a little bit, but it won't be too far away, so tune in for that one when it comes round. The second thing, I'm doing a live Q&A with Kase Filters in the early part of January. I'll put a date on the screen for when it is. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the first week. Yeah, quick thank you to Kase Filters. They've sponsored me for a couple of years, and I don't talk a lot about sponsorships and stuff on this channel really, because I know people aren't interested in that. I know I'm certainly not, but I must thank Kase for their continued support. They're a great bunch, and they do a lot for promoting their photographers' work. So as I say, if you're interested in a bit of a Q&A with me, I'll put a date and the details on the screen here, and you can have a look out for that one as well in the early part of January. But I'm going to go and make sure that this shot is right, and yeah, just wait for the light. Oh, look at that, a nice bit of side light. Do I look good? Do I look good? No, I don't look good. Anyway, okay, so we're getting that really nice sort of deep golden light that I was after, hitting the side of Great Gable here. I'm going to grab these shots that I had lined up. Fingers crossed they work. Hopefully they will. I might take a landscape version as well, just for comparison. I don't know yet. I'll see if I've got time to do that. What I think is going to be helpful for you guys is I'm going to, as I say, grab these, and then I'll take you back to the computer and you can see how I edit this shot, because I'm aware that I've been doing these videos for 6 months now and haven't really done anything in terms of sort of editing and all that sort of stuff. And I do get a lot of questions asking for editing videos. It's not really something that I want to sort of go down too much with this channel, but now and again I think it's, you know, quite interesting to see how people go about these things. So I'm going to grab these and then I'll see you back at the computer. Okay folks, so we're back at the computer, and I'm laughing to myself here because I've edited this image obviously for the purposes of showing you in this vlog, but this shot really doesn't work. You've got to laugh, but sometimes you've just got to chalk these up to experience and experimenting. I mean, in terms of the composition itself, I'm actually quite happy with it. You know, we've got some really nice strong vertical lines here, and then you've got the river sort of pointing up in the distance there to Great Gable. That part of the scene actually works for me pretty well. The foreground I spent an absolute age figuring out, only to find that this stripe on the rock was casting a really dark shadow on this nice sort of curved rock which was framing these pebbles. Yeah, it just kind of ruined it really. Now you might think, well, how has he not seen this and predicted it out in the field? But the tricky thing with this little part of the beck is it's kind of tucked away around a corner, so even though I had a rough idea of how the light was going to fall, I didn't know exactly. And what became pretty apparent when the sun came round into position, that the light was just far too harsh on this rock face. So even though it was really interesting and really eye-catching, it just didn't work under these conditions. Now that's not to say that this picture I don't think won't work in totally different conditions. I think I might have another look at it again in maybe perhaps moodier conditions or even sort of snowy conditions, but under this set of circumstances it really didn't work. And the other thing as well that I'm fighting against a little bit is we've got this really blank sky, which, you know, doesn't help. I could of course do what Photoshop and Lightroom are encouraging people to do these days, which is do a sky replacement, but yeah, I'm certainly not going to do that here. But all was not lost, because I did actually find another shot a little bit further down from this point, which is this one. Now this one for me works a lot better in that, even though I'm still fighting against quite a blank sky, the contrast between the cooler tones in the foreground and the warmer area on the mountain, they work a lot better. It's still built around the same sort of theme. You know, we've got this rock face still here with the nice vertical lines, and then we've got also some nice diagonal lines in the foreground here, all sort of pointing you up towards the mountain in the distance. So that part of the image I think works really well. And this immediate foreground, we've got some really nice textures and patterns, and this little rock pool here really caught my attention. It was some really nice sort of tones being reflected off the sky, sort of nice sort of cool blues. I didn't put the polarizer on for this shot because if I'd cut through these reflections in the water, what would have happened is this area would have been darkened, and then it would have started to sort of blend into these darker areas of the rock. So as it is, without the use of a polarizer, that's actually helping this rock pool stand out. So it's really important that when you're using a polarizer, you know which situations to use it in. I think it's quite easy when you've got a polarizer just to leave it on the lens all the time and forget about it, but you do have to be quite specific in when you use it. Now this is the finished image, but what I'll do is I'll hop back into Lightroom and I'll just do a quick and dirty edit just to give you an idea of how I got to this point. Alright, so we're back in Lightroom, and I've tried filming this little section quite a few times and I can't seem to get it under 15 minutes, so I'm going to try and get through this quite quickly without sort of skimming too much, if you like, because I don't want this video to drag on too long. But in terms of editing this picture, it really didn't need an awful lot, to be honest. It was shot as a bracket of 3 images, but as you can see from the highlight warning up in the right hand corner, if I turn it on, you can see that nothing in this image is actually clipped. So there's no real sense in using the darker frames. What I'm actually going to do is just use the bright frame that was exposed for the shadows, and then just darken down the sky to suit, because I know that that area of the sky has all the information retained in it because the histogram is telling me that. So first off, I'm going to do a bit of a balancing job on this. So I'm going to start by just using a graduated filter on the foreground, and I'm just going to brighten this up a little bit just to get it back to where my eye saw it. The second thing I'm going to do is draw another grad over the sky and hit the illuminance range mask and just make sure that I'm not darkening any of the rock face there. And all I'm going to do here is just bring the highlights down a little bit just to bring back that sky touch and just get it about right there. Okay, so now we've got a pretty balanced exposure. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the tone curve. I'm just going to brighten up the lights just to add a little bit more contrast, and then I'm not going to darken down the dark areas too much because they're already quite dark and we don't want it sort of getting out of control. So just going to nudge that a little bit this way, and that's starting to look pretty good. Now because that's a global adjustment, it's brightened up the sky again, so I want to look at just darkening down these blues. So I'm going to draw another grad over the sky, go to the range mask tool again, select colour, make a couple of samples on the sky, and then just darken the exposure a little bit and also just cool it off a little bit as well. And that's starting to look pretty good. The next thing I want to do is just address the colour of the orange on the mountain. It's starting to look a little bit yellowy to me, and to my eye it was a bit redder than that. So I'm going to come to the HSL panel, go to the hue slider and just nudge the orange a little bit to the left just to add a little bit more red to it. And I'm also going to bring the luminance down on it a little bit, just a tiny bit. So that's starting to look pretty good now. The last thing I want to do here is just add a little bit more texture to this foreground. We've got some really nice shapes and patterns here, and I just want to accentuate them a little bit. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of texture, just about 15, and a tiny bit of clarity. You've got to be quite sparing with the clarity slider. It can, it can get out of control a little bit easy, but that's just bringing out these textures a little bit more. From this point, I'm going to just hop into Lightroom and do a little bit of dodging and burning on this foreground area. You can do this in Lightroom, of course. My preference is to work in layers in Photoshop, so I'm going to just hop over there now. Okay, so we've got our image loaded up in Photoshop. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on this foreground area. don't need that. Just going to make a duplicate layer to work on, so hit Command or Control and J. Dodging and burning, there's about 50 different ways you can do this in Photoshop. I can think of at least 5 or 6 off the top of my head. They all work, it's just whatever sort of works best for you. For me, my dodging and burning method, I tend to use curve adjustment layers. So all I'm going to do here is select a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to pull up on the brighter area of the curve, so you can see that's brightening up the image. Now obviously that's brightening up everything, which I don't want. So I'm going to invert this layer by hitting Control and I, which puts a mask over, and then with a soft brush and white selected, so remembering that white reveals and black conceals, I'm going to set my flow down at 5%, and just with a nice soft brush I'm just going to paint in over the lighter areas of the foreground. Okay, so with that adjustment now done, I'll just toggle before and after. So that's before and that's after, so you can just see that those brighter areas are brought out a little bit more. The next thing I'm going to do is the burning, which is the darkening process. Same method again, I'm just going to use another curves adjustment layer, and then this time I'm going to pull down on the darker area of the curve, and as you can see that's darkening everything. Same again, Control and I to invert the layer, soft brush selected, white again, low flow, and then I'm just going to darken down the darker areas on this foreground just to shape the light a little bit better. Okay, so with that adjustment done, I'll just toggle these before and after. So that's before and that's after. If we group these two layers together by hitting Control and G and then toggle before and after, you can see the effect of the dodging and burning before and after. And that's pretty much us done with this really. I will just save this back into Lightroom. I'll just overwrite that old file because we don't need that one. And now we've got the TIFF file in Photoshop here. The last thing I'm going to do is just darken down the top of the image a little bit just to hold your eye in a bit more. So if I just pull that down a tiny bit, and then I'm going to darken off these corners a little bit as well, again just to sort of hold your eye in the image a little bit better. The one final part of this image I just wanted to edit was this rock pool. To my eye, the water was a little cooler than this because the sky above is really quite blue at this point. So if I just cool the temperature down a little bit on the water, just a little bit, and then I'll just add a little bit of global vibrance in, and then that's it, pretty much done. I've not really done any sharpening on this image yet. I mean, there's many different methods of sharpening. I have a preset sharpen over on the left hand side here. If I just click that, and it just adds a sort of basic sharpen that you can see here. If we zoom in at 100%, there's plenty of detail in there that you can see. And that's the final image, folks. Not really a lot to do with that one. We could have done obviously with a better sky, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. I hope you've enjoyed this video, folks. I'm not going to do too many of these videos on editing because there's an absolute mountain of information already on YouTube to do with landscape photography, post-processing. I do offer online tuition if you want to do more of that with me personally. But I'll be concentrating my time on YouTube more out in the field than anything else. But with a bit of luck, this forecast for January of cold weather is going to pay off, and I'll be able to get a lot more photography done during this period. So I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Keep liking, subscribing, and obviously hit the bell notifications icon so you know when my videos are coming up. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Look after yourself, folks.